All right, welcome to RealGM Radio. Jared Dubin is going to join me today, and we are talking about all 30 teams. That's right. We're going to go through each one of these teams, talk about one thing that we're excited to watch for each of these teams over the final stretch of the season. Going to try to keep this under an hour. We'll see if we succeed. Let's jump in. All right, Jared Dubin is here, one of our favorite guests around here on RealGM Radio. And Jared, you recently wrote a column coming out of the All-Star break for your site Last Night in Basketball, 30 things I'll be watching on League Pass. And I basically just stole the whole format, and we're going to use that as the framework of today's show. Hope you don't mind. We are going to try to avoid going 3 hours long, which I think you and I could easily do if we were really going to try to hit all 30 teams here. So here's what we did. We each chose 5 teams that we wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive on. Maybe one of them will overlap, so we'll see. But we'll do 5 teams to do a deeper dive, and then we'll kind of speed round the rest of them. But we will talk about every team in the league on this episode. Let's just jump right in because we don't want to waste time. You kick us off. Where do you want to start?
Well, I assumed that we were going to start with the Kings and Maxime Reynaud and Dylan Cardwell, but now Cardwell's out. So
dang. So it screwed up the format
kind
there.
of ruined things for me. That was my entire plan, was to do that. But I guess instead, let's start. Why not? Let's start at the top of the standings with the Detroit Pistons, right? They are trying to hold off the Thunder for the best record in the league and secure home court throughout the playoffs. But more consequentially for them, I want to see if they have enough shooting on the roster to make things work. They're only 27th in three-point rate and 21st in three-point percentage. They traded for Kevin Huerter at the deadline in the hopes of getting another sniper out there, but he's been trending downward in that department for several years. I think he's at like 31% from three this season. They're so good defensively that it kind of comes out in the wash during the regular season, but playoff defenses are a lot less forgiving. So I want to see what happens on that front.
I also have the Pistons as one of my deep dive teams. I'm so glad we're starting there. Number one, I just love this Pistons team. I love the fact that they're getting into brawls. I love the snot factor. I love that every time a Pistons team is good, they all kind of follow the same "don't F with us" model. And I think that stuff really does matter more than an entertainment factor. I do think that when you look in the playoffs, the Pistons versus some of these other teams that we're going to talk about here, they're the one team that I don't doubt whether their physicality is going to translate into the postseason. I do think that that's going to be a weapon for them. I do think that that could create potential advantages for them. And I've been really high on this Pistons team all season long. I know we don't really talk about them, we as in sort of the general NBA media, conglomerate here, but I've been very high on them and as a title contender. I think that they can legitimately come out of the East because they have the formula, right? It's Cade Cunningham, MVP level superstar, running things offensively, and then just this crazy physical, get up into your grill, muck up the game, take the reins of the pace of the game kind of defense. And so when it comes to the Pistons, and the reason I have them as a deeper dive team for on my list is, at this point, I'm just looking for cracks. I'm looking for reasons why they can't win the East over these next few games. They have the league's second best defense. They're number one in opponent turnover rate. And this is a crazy stat that I had to double check a few different times to make sure it was right. They're currently forcing turnovers at a higher rate than last season's Thunder team. And all we did was talk about that with that Thunder team last year. And we are not talking about the Pistons in that same way. This team turns you over and over and over again. I know that three-point shooting is the biggest problem, right? Like if I'm talking about cracks, that's the one, right? They're bottom 10 in three-point shooting percentage in the league. That's obviously an issue, but the Pistons will tell you, hey, we make up for it with offensive rebounding, with defense, with getting out in transition because we turn you over all the time. We'll see whether or not the Kevin Huerter thing helps the minutes when Duncan Robinson's on the court. There's issues with who's our last starter in crunch time. Like, they'll figure that out. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for cracks. Give me the reason why the Pistons can't win the East. That's what I'm watching for from them over the final stretch.
Yeah, I think when you start having to look for reasons that they can't do it, that's how you know a team is really good. And I guess the cracks is kind of what I'm looking for too. And I think that's the most likely one is the shooting, just because they don't have much off the dribble creation except for Cade either. Jalen Duren does some off the dribble creation. Dennis Jenkins does some off the dribble creation. But other than that, it's a lot of like Asar Thompson running into brick walls because everybody is cutting off his driving lanes by, hanging so far off of him on the perimeter. Tobias Harris can do a little bit of stuff in the post, but they don't go to that all that often. And frankly, rightfully so, because he's, almost my age. So why are you running your offense through Tobias Harris at any point? But the shooting, I think it's just such a different animal in the playoffs. Like, teams are going to let Cade shoot in the playoffs too. He's only shooting 33% from three. The Knicks did a little bit of that to them last year in the playoffs and sort of dared him to shoot rather than get all the way into the lane on the drive. They're going to give Jaylen Brown space on the perimeter and try to cut off the driving lanes that he accesses as well. They're going to hang back on those Cade Durant pick and rolls. Like, if there's anything sorry, my dog is going nuts right now. He's like just running around the room.
Big Dennis Jenkins fan.
I just took him outside. He is a problem. He's an Asar Thompson fan too, like running around. Like,
got that dog in him.
And an absolute madman. Now he just came running over to me now that I acknowledged him. But what was I saying? Talking about the shooting and how teams are going to, slough off of all of these guys in the playoffs. It's just, do they have enough verve and juice in their offense to sort of counteract the way defenses are going to play them? It's kind of like a simplistic formulation. Everybody says this about teams that aren't great at shooting, but that's because it's so important in the playoffs to be able to figure out a way to crack defenses despite the fact that you don't have enough shooting to do it on structure.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit, just in terms of the shooting part of this, not in the overall concept of the team, but it reminds me a little bit of the 2024 Mavericks, where you knew Luka was going to have the ball in his hands most of the time, and with this Pistons team, it's going to be Cade. Can you get a PJ Washington type of run from somebody on this Pistons roster? Can Duncan Robinson just lose his mind for a few weeks in the playoffs and just shoot 48% from deep? Can anybody really just sort of get hot and be that guy that they need? The problem is with this Pistons team, nobody really outside of maybe Tobias Harris shooting from the corners projects as that kind of player who's just going to say, I'm going to let this thing rip and we'll see it. It would be crazy, in other words, to expect Asar Thompson all of a sudden to start shooting 40% from deep.
They don't get the volume of threes either,
Right.
Like, it's I think it was 27th in 3-point rate even. So having someone like PJ Washington go nuts like that for a few weeks, like, it just seems less likely. Like, but they brought in why am I drawing a blank? Karis LeVert. Is that going to happen?
Right. Exactly. So can they win the East without that? I think there's a path to it, right? You really got to win the rest of the math battle stuff. You got to win the offensive rebound stuff. You probably got to get to the free throw line a little bit more than you are right now in the playoffs. You got to win the transition stuff. Like, if you win all of those things, that's going to give that should set them up for a potential path through the East. But then, winning the whole thing, that becomes a bigger problem when you consider who could potentially come out of the Western Conference. But that's what I'm looking for. Other than the 3-point shooting, I'm looking for cracks with the Pistons. Good start, Jared. I like going off your list. Go ahead. You give us the next one.
Should we run through all the deep dive teams first, or just say?
Let's do the deep dive teams first.
All right. Well, the next one I had was, let's go to the Mavericks.
Okay.
Is Cooper Flagg going to hold off Con Knippel in the Rookie of the Year race? Right now, he is on pace to be one of just 8 rookies in the history of the league to average at least 20.6 rebounds and 4 assists per game. Only 4 of those guys, or he would be the 4th of those guys to do it since the merger. The 8 are Elgin Baylor, Oscar Robertson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Sidney Wicks, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, and Luka Doncic. It's pretty incredible that he's even being challenged here, but that's how good Knippel has been, and Flagg's going to have to, maintain or even improve on what he's done in order to win the race.
So I had this as a quick hit team for me, but I'm glad you brought up Cooper Flagg, because that's what I was looking at. I'm looking at specifically Cooper's 3-point shooting. He's shooting 35% on threes since Christmas after starting the year butt ugly from 3-point range.
Oh my God, it was so terrible.
It was so I don't know that he made one. But
I was doing like deep dives on how far he jumps when he takes his jumpers. That's how concerned I was.
Oh no. 35% on threes since Christmas and trending in the right direction. And so that's been really good. That float game that he has is money every single night. There's real just like it's all the stuff that we fell in love with from Cooper Flagg coming out of the draft. Understanding the game, the moment, just being able to read the floor, all that stuff is there. If you watch Cooper Flagg on a night-to-night basis, you just see, okay, this guy's got it. And then you watch Con Knipple, to your point, you're like, okay, this guy's got it. There's a competitive edge to him. There's the shooting, but there's also an understanding the game, the floor general stuff, the floor game stuff. I think this is a great race. What could really throw a wrench in it in terms of Cooper Flagg's chances is if Charlotte keeps winning the way they are, there's going to be a lot of voters who say, well, we can't really, the Charlotte Hornets team is one of the feel-good stories of the second half of the season. Nobody's really up for awards. Like, maybe Charles Lee for Coach of the Year, but that doesn't feel right for a playing team. Does Con Knipple kind of get the award? And he would be deserving. He's an awesome rookie. But, like, does he sort of get a little bit of an extra boost in terms of the voters' eyes for, hey, it feels like this Charlotte team is a team we need to reward somehow, where that Dallas team is just going in the other direction? Especially good time to include the news that Kyrie Irving has been ruled out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I feel like he absolutely would get some of that boost, but personally in my officially unofficial ballot, because I fill out a ballot every year, but I don't actually have a vote that counts for the NBA. I don't care about team success when it comes to the Rookie of the Year race. Like, you're going to these bad teams. Nobody expects your team to be good. If they're not good, I'm not going to hold it against you. But Knipple is freaking awesome, man. Like, the shooting is what it is at this point. He's having maybe the best shooting season for a rookie ever, shooting 43% on 8 threes a game. He's second in the league in threes behind Donovan Mitchell. And I think he's only 2 or 3 behind. He could lead the league in threes as a rookie, which would be absolutely insane. But Flagg, like you said, he's got the floater stuff. I think the transition stuff is really impressive. There was one point where he had a 20-game stretch where he was averaging over 5 transition points a game, which was second or third in the league at the time. I think he's down to 4.2 or 4.3 over the last 15 games or so, down to that,
right,
which is 10th or 11th in the league or something along those lines. He's just such a force when he gets out into the open court. He has such good body control and such athleticism when he gets out there. I mean, I don't want to say he's going to be special. He's already special, and he's going to be so much better than that.
There was a reporter who asked Con Knipple, going back to Knipple really quick, earlier in the year, hey, you're going to be, they played the Warriors, and something about how you're going to be compared to Steph Curry for the rest of your career. And Con Knipple was did the same thing that I did in that moment. Whoa, Steph, what are we talking about here? And then you see some of these numbers and that fact that he's, leading the league in 3-point shooting potentially, and you're like, maybe that reporter was onto something there. I'm gonna choose our next team. We're gonna go to the Boston Celtics as a deep dive team here, and I'm obviously watching for Jayson Tatum's return. How does it impact specifically Jaylen Brown? And I know this is a big, sort of first take type of talking point. I don't think it's one of those media generated talking points. I think there's something actually here, in other words, and I'm basing that off of Jaylen Brown's recent comments about the fact that he's really enjoying being the guy in Boston right now. And he might expect, and I don't know that he would be wrong to, he might expect Jayson Tatum to take a step back when Tatum comes back, as Tatum sort of works his way back into the flow of things. But Tatum might want to sort of like a batter, just sort of swing his way into a rhythm. And I don't know that Jayson Tatum just comes back to the house where he was the man of the house and he always had the big piece of chicken, and just walks back into that house and takes a smaller piece of chicken. I don't know that that's necessarily what's going to happen there. I think it's an interesting dynamic. I'm not trying to, make any predictions or make any judgment one way or the other. I just know, watching basketball as long as I have, this stuff matters. Who the guy is matters. Who gets the ball at the end of games. How you work a star player of Tatum's caliber back into the mix here. It could disrupt things, potentially, for Boston. There's obviously a best case scenario where Tatum walks in as sort of, and I don't mean this at all in a disrespectful way, souped up Anthony Simons, where he's shooting threes at volume, but he's also doing all the role player things, rebounding the way that Tatum rebounds. They really need his rebounding if Tatum brings it the way that he has brought it in his career. His defense obviously would be huge. You're pushing guys like Baylor Shireman and maybe Jordan Walsh out of the rotation, which I think would be an okay thing for Boston down the stretch of the season, and especially when you get into the postseason. But, there's a world where it works really well and everything's good. And This looks ridiculous to even bring it up because Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum have been playing basketball together for a really long time, and maybe this is a complete non-story and a complete non-issue. Or it goes the other way, and Jaylen Brown has had a taste of what this is like, and says, "Why? Look at where we are right now. This guy's coming back from injury. Why should we rock the boat at all or change anything that I'm doing?" It's something that I'm watching for sure.
Definitely going to be watching it. Unfortunately, you covered almost everything I would have had to say about the subject, so I'm going to have to like vamp here for a second. I will say that on the biggest piece of chicken formulation, I think that he's almost going to have to take a smaller piece. Just he's not going to come back and play 35 minutes a game every night. So just naturally, he's going to be taking us, a smaller piece of chicken or a smaller piece of the pie or whatever you want to call it than he used to be. Like he's just not going to come back and be dropped right back into the same role that he had, whether he's starting or whether he comes off the bench. He's going to be playing limited minutes early on. And I do think something that helps him sort of sliding into whatever role that he takes right away is he might be the most malleable star we've had since Kevin Durant. Like the way that his skill set works, he is good at everything, at least. Like there's nothing that he's just bad at. He's a good shooter. He's a good defender. He's good creating off the dribble. He's become a good passer. He's a good rebounder. He's a good defender. And he's great at some of those things. He's great at creating or creating offense for himself. He may not be quite as great at that right away as he used to be, though. But the fact that he's so good at everything else is going to help alleviate that. And the fact that Jaylen Brown has been so good at creating offense for himself this year is going to help the Celtics with the fact that Jayson Tatum might not be as good at that yet. Like, I feel like there's a world where this all works in concert as well.
It's a great point. And it's a good point that you make about the minutes being low when he comes back. I think overall it's a good thing that he's coming back to sort of answer that question too about, hey, should Jayson Tatum even come back in the first place? Yeah, dude. Like, if you can play, go out there. There's nothing better than 100%. If you feel ready to go, go. If anything, it sets you up for a bigger next year. Because if you don't come back this season, that's a lot of time off from not playing basketball. So definitely worth watching. You get the next pick.
I will go with, I gotta scroll down in my list here. So we did the Mavs, we did the Pistons. Let's go to the Rockets because their offense is trash. They are 25th in offensive rating since January 1st. And, without Steven Adams, like destroying teams on the offensive glass, a huge piece of their offensive identity is missing. Like, you can be really good on the offensive glass, or you can be otherworldly good to the point that nobody else is in a league with you on the offensive glass. And one of those things worked and propped up their offense to the point that there was a significant chunk of the season where they were a top 5 offense. And the other one, it looks like you're a bottom 10 offense. And if you're a bottom 10 offense, then you're kind of dead in the water when it comes to having any playoff hopes. So if whether or how they can bounce back over the second half of the season, like, it's going to determine whether they are an actual factor in the playoffs or not.
Yeah, their offense is a little bit like Adele, like Adele is a super pop star because she has arguably the best voice, in pop music. But if she had, instead of an elite voice, just merely a good voice, like, would anybody care about Adele? Like, I don't know, right? Like, she doesn't like make hits. Like, she's not a great songwriter. You know what I mean? In Houston, going from elite, best in the world offensive rebounding to merely a good offensive rebounding team is a huge problem because that's sort of your hook. That's what makes you interesting. That's what makes you good. And now that you don't have that selling point, it's an issue.
Was the pun intended with the hook there?
Am I missing it?
Adele hooks.
Oh, right. Thinking Houston still. No, but I'll take it. I'm glad you brought up the Houston offense. I also had Houston on my list, but it was because of the Kevin Durant stuff.
Oh, God. Mo and I were talking about the Rockets earlier today, and I brought up the offense, and he brought up the Kevin Durant stuff as to, whether they were going to be affected by it throughout the rest of the season.
There's drama, and all I'm saying, I have no idea if this stuff is real or not, and frankly, I'm not as interested in it as it seems like a lot of people online are. I did go through the Kevin Durant Files website just to try to at least familiarize myself with what exactly is going on. Here's what I'll say is that Rockets team outside of Kevin Durant is a very young team. There are a lot of early 20-year-old people who grew up online, right? Gen Z type of players on this team who grew up online in the era of fake news, and whether or not, I don't know if this is real or that is real. If in that locker room there's people side-eyeing KD being like, was that real or not? That's enough of an issue to cause an issue in that Houston locker room, regardless of if it was real or not. I don't know if Kevin Durant is at fault. I don't know if any of this has anything to do with him. It could be a outside noise that penetrates the locker room that is completely unfair to the Houston Rockets, but that doesn't make it not so. And I'll be watching the body language, Jared. That's what I'll be watching for with the Houston Rockets going forward.
Yeah, I guess you got to watch Jabari Smith and Alperen Sengun to see if they are if Sengun stops turning the ball over, if Jabari can make a shot, if Sengun plays some defense. Yeah.
Or it goes the other way. Jabari Smith Jr. just starts taking shots from the logo and Alperen Sengun stops coming up to the level on pick and roll or whatever Houston's supposed to call it. Then he'd be like, all right, maybe he went the other direction there.
Just start shivving this guy on the side and be like, hey, buddy, you thought it was bad before. Look at this.
Houston is also worth a deep dive here too, because this was a team that we thought was a title contender coming into the season. And I to your point, I think the Fred VanVleet one already was a big issue. And then the Steven Adams one was one injury too many for me to even really consider them in terms of, like, when I'm going through my contenders in the NBA, I'm not even talking about the Houston Rockets anymore. And it's not an oversight. I thought about it. I can't put them in that group. I don't see the way. I don't see the way through the West for this Rockets team right now. Like, Adams isn't coming back. There's a little bit of rumblings that maybe VanVleet can come back, but I just don't know that that's going to be the fix for them after how long he didn't play. And
a guy like 9 months off a torn ACL is not solving your problems.
Well said. Well said. All right, my next team. Let's go with the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs here are on my list, obviously because of James Harden. I'm watching James Harden. I've watched James Harden in Cleveland. I've liked what I've seen so far. I don't think that that's breaking news here. They have yet to lose a game with James Harden in the lineup. But even before the Harden thing, they were already trending in the right direction.
Mm.
They were number one in offensive rating over the last 15 or 20 games, starting to flirt again with a top 10 defense. They're getting healthier. Jalen Tyson kind of became the player that they hoped DeAndre Hunter would be when they traded for Hunter last deadline, and then they got rid of Hunter at this deadline. And then in that move, end up kind of fortifying their backcourt with Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis. And so the Harden thing gets the headline, obviously, and that is deserving of the headline. But you've went from basically Darius Garland to Harden, Keon Ellis, and Dennis Schroeder now alongside Donovan Mitchell in that backcourt. You've obviously still got Sam Merrill there and all these other guys. I thought they did really well at the trade deadline, all things considered. The Harden swing was a swing of the biggest proportions, but I get it. Like, I see where they're coming from. I'm very pro James Harden trade for the Cavs because, frankly, you could tell me about, hey, he's 10 years older than Darius Garland. Darius Garland's a two-time All-Star. How could you do this? Your window is now. Like, your window isn't 5 years from now. Your window is right now. You got to do it. And I'm a firm believer, if you're in your window, you do whatever you can to win in your window. I frankly don't care about 4 or 5, 6 years from now, even if Darius Garland turns into what we thought maybe Garland could have been a few years ago, and he puts all the injury stuff behind him, and he's awesome. If you really made an honest run at it with Harden and Mitchell over these next couple of years, I think if you're a Cavs fan, you can walk away from it being like, all right, like that was still probably the right decision for us to make. Anyway, I'm watching Cleveland. They've righted the ship already, and now this James Harden element is an interesting element, not just from a on the court basketball product. Just watching this kind of get put together, and Harden unlocking Jared Allen and getting Evan Mobley going, and everything that we know that Harden can do as a pick and roll, a facilitator there. But also, like, Cleveland, could they really come out of the Eastern Conference now? We got to start thinking about the Cavaliers in that way again.
You had me until the very last moment there, basically. Like, the James Harden thing is going to work, ... during the regular season. We know that is the case. We know how good of a manipulator he is offensively. We know how well he fits next to another creator on the perimeter. We've seen it throughout his career at different times, whether it's Russell Westbrook or Chris Paul or Kawhi Leonard or whoever else that he's played next to during his time. We've already seen it working with Mitchell in the short time that they played together before the All-Star break. We've already seen it working with Jared Allen in the short time they played together before the All-Star break. He is going to make it work with Evan Mobley. He is going to make it work with guys like Sam Merrill and Jalen Tyson and all the guys that are coming off the bench. Like, he is an offensive genius. He will make things work, whether in the half court or the full court, depending on whether they want to get out on the break when he's on the court or not. And I don't think there are going to be any illusions about like whose team it is at the end of close games or whatnot. Like, Donovan Mitchell is getting the ball at the end of those games, and James Harden's going to be there to make sure everything is set up the right way and to get him the ball where it needs to be gotten. During the playoffs, this is a team that has sort of been a shrinking violet and doesn't have the requisite toughness or physicality in the playoffs. And this is a player who in the playoffs has sort of been like, he's had his moments of greatness, but whenever it's gotten into like a game 7 or deep in a playoff series or what have you, he's not been the same guy that he is for the rest of his career for whatever reason. And I just don't know how
game 7 against Denver. I mean,
yeah, like if you are trying to break through a ceiling in the playoffs, like, is the guy to do that for you James Harden? And if you're a team, like if you're a player trying to go further than you have in the playoffs before, is the Cavs, this group of the Cavs, the team to take you further than you have been before? I just don't know if the answer to either of those questions is yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've framed it this way before, but it's almost like, all right, let's see if 2 wrongs make a right. You know, that's sort of what's going on in Cleveland with James Harden right now. I've mentioned some of the stats and the analytics, but like the drives that he's able to provide with this Cleveland offense. I mean, this was a team that ranked near the top of the league in drives per game. It's a big reason why the Mitchell Garland fit worked in the regular season last year. A big reason why it wasn't really working and why Cleveland's offense was trending in the wrong direction for most of this season was they just weren't driving to the basket and creating opportunities for themselves and for others. With Harden, who's just one of the premier drivers in the league throughout his career, that's obviously going to go back up. So you're just going to have this constant rim pressure with Harden and Mitchell. That's going to set up guys like Tyson and Merrill and Mobley from the corners and all this stuff. But you're right. Like, it's a fascinating experiment. Harden plus Cleveland. Like, is there just enough? I like the way that you put a shrinking violet. Is there enough like just bad playoff juju here where you almost like catch lightning in a bottle? I don't know. It's a fascinating chemistry experiment.
Yeah, I have zero doubt that it's going to work in the regular season. Like, it is going to be freaking awesome down the stretch of the season. Like, straight up, I agree that when you're in this situation that they're in and your window is now, you do whatever you can to maximize your window. And like, James Harden straight up is better than Darius Garland. Like, that's just a fact. It is what it is. So if you've got to like, if that's the move that's available you make it. It's just, I have a lot of doubts about whether it can continue working in the playoffs.
Maybe
especially
the right
because
thing,
they didn't solve like the front court toughness issue that they have.
Right. Maybe the right thing here is we're watching James Harden play well with the Cavs in the regular season. We know it's going to work. What we're really watching is how everybody starts talking themselves into maybe Cleveland, and then for it to ultimately, for what,
it's like
what
the
to
Clippers,
happen,
ironically,
what to happen in the playoffs. Yeah, exactly.
It's ironically, I don't know if you heard that. I said it was ironically like the Clippers.
Right, exactly like the Clippers. I don't know if that's your next team. I don't think it is, but I want to jump to your next team. But first, we got to take a quick break. Today's episode of Real GM Radio is brought to you by Prize Picks. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. It's America's #1 app for sports picks. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if your picks are right, you can cash in. You can choose from basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, UFC, and more. Plus, they've got features like early payouts and flex play, so you've got options while the games are still happening. I downloaded the app and I was surprised by how easy it was to get started. It took just a couple of minutes to build my first lineup. I've been making NBA lineups around players that I already follow, picking more or less on points and assists, and it honestly makes every possession way more fun to watch. I also love the social feature where you can see what other people are playing and copy lineups with one click. It's a cool way to learn and build better picks, and it's available in all 50 states. So it's easy for just about anyone to jump in. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Okay, back here, Real GM Radio with Jared Dubin. We're going through all 30 teams, talking about what 30 things we're watching down the final stretch of the season. We just talked about Cleveland. You're up next.
So my next team was the Knicks, and
Okay.
specifically Karl-Anthony Towns. Like, when is he going to get back to being the Karl-Anthony Towns that we've seen throughout his career offensively? Because this is the worst offensive season of his career, arguably, probably. It's either this or his rookie year. Like, and the best version of the Knicks clearly involves Towns reaching a higher level than he's reached this year. Like, I don't know what's been going on to make him miss open threes and so many shots that he's missed inside the paint. But the Knicks going to the finals and winning the East is just like not going to happen if he's the guy that he's been throughout this season. Like, this is a guy that for his career is like almost a 50, 40, 85 guy. And this year he's shooting 46% from the field, 35% from three. Like, throughout his career, he's been like 57, 58, 59% on 2-point shots. This year he's down at like 51% just because he can't make a shot around the basket.
Yeah.
And then the threes, it's just like, this is a 40% shooter for his career, like the self-proclaimed best shooting big man of all time. And it wasn't ridiculous that he claimed that. And he's just not making his threes either. If he doesn't get back online, then like the version of the Knicks we thought we could see coming into the year, like where they're going to go to the finals, I just doubt that that can be the case if he's not going to be the offensive force that we've seen him be throughout his career.
It's such a great call out, right? Because I think most people with the Knicks, they're going to focus on the defense. And can that be considered? And that's a big issue, right? Like, what is this defense? There's times where it looks elite. There's times where it looks like they really couldn't care less about playing on that end of the court.
Yeah.
We all know that the defense has to be good for them to get as far as they think they can go. The Towns piece of this is really interesting because I thought last year, I likened it to somebody who, like, when Karl-Anthony Towns would drive to the basket for most of his career, he was kind of like walking into the grocery store, really not sure what he wanted with no list. And then last year he was like, I'm going to the bread aisle. I need bread. I'm going to the bread aisle. I'm getting my bread, and then I'm leaving the bread aisle and I'm leaving the store. It was so much more decisive in the way that he was driving to the basket. It wasn't just kind of moving all over the place. And this year he's back to just no list, just kind of browsing the aisles. I'm like, what happened? His dunk attempts are down. You're absolutely right. He went from shooting 70% at the rim last year to 61% this year, which is one of the lowest marks of his career. I'm not really sure what happened. There was a decisiveness to Towns' game. And a lot of times decisiveness will show up and manifest as physicality, right? And there's a lack of decisiveness when I watch Towns play right now.
Yeah, last year it was I am driving as hard to the right as possible and I am shooting 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
This year it's I'm driving, I don't really know where, and also I'm going to use my off arm and get an offensive foul every single time.
Right. He's got that little chicken wing back. I don't know what's going on. He's got to be a lot better. When you slight swerve here, because we've talked about Detroit, Cleveland, and New York now, Jared. Do you still feel like it's one of those teams that comes out of the East? If you had to sort of handicap it here in terms of who you maybe, in terms of trustability rankings, if you had to put your trust into one of these teams, or maybe it's a different team, who would it be in the East?
Yeah, I would throw Boston in the mix too at this point, given the season that the Celtics have had. I picked the Knicks before the start of the season, and I don't know that I've seen anything that necessarily takes me off of that definitively. It's more just I haven't seen anything that makes me feel better about it than I did at the start of the year either. Like, I think when they're operating at peak capacity, they're probably like, I think they have the highest ceiling of that group of teams, especially if we don't know what Jayson Tatum is going to look like when he gets back. But the floor is maybe a little bit lower than I thought it was going to be coming into the year. And I also don't think we've seen the ceiling because Towns just hasn't been the guy that we thought he was going to be throughout this year. And they can't seem to get, like, they can always have either one of OG Anunoby or Mikal Bridges going at a time, and they're never going at the exact same time.
Right. The interesting thing about Towns, too, is he'll just flip the switch sometimes randomly. Like, he doesn't ramp up to it. He just, one day he's just like, oh, he's awesome again. And then he'll just be awesome for 2 weeks. and you're just like, okay, cool. And then something. So you got to time it right. I think if you're the Knicks in the playoffs, you're like, okay, let's hope that maybe it's a good thing that he's not playing very well right now, and then he'll time it right for the playoffs there. My next team, let's keep it in the Eastern Conference because I have one other team after this, and it's in the West. I'm going to go with the Miami Heat. I'm really interested in this playoff push and specifically how they approach it. So right now, they're a half game behind Orlando and 2 games behind Philly. Miami's in 8th, Orlando 7th, Philly's in 6th. Miami wants to obviously escape the play-in tournament. They are looking to make the playoffs outright. And Orlando just lost Franz Wagner. Philly's going to be out without Paul George for a little bit while longer. The Joel Embiid obviously in and out. And then for the Heat, they're starting to get guys back. Norm Powell should be back. Tyler Hero could be back as soon as these first couple of games and he's not played, most of this season. If you get your starting backcourt back here with Powell and Hero, I think that really juices an offense that's been going in the wrong direction. I think they're 17th in offensive rating right now, but they've done a lot of that work without Powell and without Hero recently. And then quietly after a slow start, Bam Adebayo starting to play better. But the interesting thing here, and maybe what I'm watching for the most is, how do you balance that versus trying to get some of these young players real reps, and specifically Spo going to that Bam Ware lineup again right before the All-Star break? Is he going to stick with it in terms of the starting lineup, or is he going to, make it, a rotation thing in pockets of the game or whatever? Is that going to continue the Bam Ware alignment? Because that wasn't very good for most of the season when they were playing it, even though it is trending in the right direction. It's actually a positive net rating when those two guys are on the court for the first time in a long time. But how the Heat approach this playoff push in terms of balancing some of the youth with some of the known quantities on this roster, and whether or not they can frankly catch Orlando and maybe even Philadelphia, that to me is what I'm watching.
Taking like a deep sigh because it's like how I feel about the Heat is like, I can't do it. I can't do it again. I can't get roped into this team that just, I know they radically reinvented their offense this year, and that's quote unquote exciting. But it just bores the hell out of me with this team where they're just, at this point, every year that they don't go to the finals, they're just like this 7th or 8th seed that people try to talk themselves into because we know that they have the ceiling that they can go to the finals. And it's just like, I don't see it this year with them, even if they get out of the play-in, which I feel like is probably not that likely. I guess maybe they could catch the Sixers, but if the Sixers are healthy, I like that team better. Yep. I will say that I'm very intrigued by Kasparis Yakashonis. I never know how to pronounce his name. Yakashonis. That was the thing that I had on my list of what I'm watching for with the Heat. He started getting regular minutes over the last month or so. 21 minutes a night, 7.5 points, 3 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 45% from the field, 45% from 3. And there was a stretch mixed in there where he started and was really not good in that 6-game stretch that he started. So he's been quite good outside of that in the games that he's been coming off the bench. I like him a lot. I can't get into the offense still. I know it's going to be better most likely with Powell and Hero back, but this is an offense that, despite all of the reinvention, like you said, it's still 17th in the league. And you're drawing dead when you have an offense that's below average. I think you can have a defense that's below average because if you put it together for a few weeks, you can sort of overcome the issues that you had during the regular season. Teams tend to lock in more in defense in the playoffs. But if you can't score, it's just a problem that's really, really tough to overcome in the playoffs. The Bam Ware stuff, the Ware yo-yoing of his minutes is mind-boggling to me. I don't really even know where to go with that.
Neither do the Heat. It seems like the yo-yoing is a good way to frame it. They will tell you that Kalel is not putting the work in behind the scenes that they want to see. Whatever. I do think when Tyler Hero came back, Ware went to the bench because they wanted to start their quote unquote best 5. Mm-hmm. And I think that messed Ware up, and that's on Ware, to be fair. You can't change your approach whether you're starting or coming off the bench, especially in Miami where that's sort of the whole thing. So development's not linear is what they say, and I think with Ware that certainly is the case. But if you think about where Ware is now versus where he was as a rookie, I mean, it's night and day. This guy is actually making an impact, and he is, I think, trending in the right direction. So we'll see with him. I'm not sitting here claiming that he can make a run or even win a playoff series. But I do think there's some interesting stuff happening there that could set themselves up for the summer. Kasparis Yakochonis, that the main stat there that jumps out to me is the 45% from three. This is a guy who thought a lot of people thought was going to be in the lottery, slides to Miami at the end of the first round, and looks great. Like, I'm not saying he looks like one of the best rookies or necessarily even like a lottery pick in what has been an awesome and loaded draft here, but they really look like they found somebody there. And I just want to see them with him, with Pelle Larsson, with Kalel, with Jaime Jaquez Jr., who I think is right now third in Sixth Man of the Year odds. They've got some young guys who kind of look like hits. None of them are going to be stars or even all-stars, but like legit rotation guys on good teams. Like, I think that's what they have in there. And finding ways to get those guys more minutes and feed them a little bit more responsibility is going to be key while they're balancing that with obviously trying to make the playoffs here. Your next team.
My next team is the Thunder, just because Jalen Williams has not looked right all year, and he's dealing with another hamstring injury now. And the Thunder can't be themselves if they don't have their second best player operating at peak capacity. Like, they've been dealing with a bunch of injuries to basically everyone throughout the year. They got Shea dealing with an injury right now. They got J-Dub dealing with this injury. Kason Wallace's missed time. Isaiah Hartenstein's missed time. Lou Dort's missed time. Alex Caruso's missed time. Like, they haven't been whole throughout the year, but not having J-Dub is the real big thing. And they need him not just back on the court, but back to being himself, because the West is crazy tough and you're not going to make it through if you're not whole.
The Jalen Williams thing is a big issue, and I keep listening to Thunder podcasts and stuff like that. And they're like, well, we know what Jalen Williams is when he comes back, all-star, all-NBA. We saw him, what he did. I mean, his game in the finals last year was crazy, all this stuff. Yeah, okay, all that stuff happened. Are we sure he's this guy every year? Like, I'm a big Jalen Williams fan. I'm just saying the track record isn't necessarily there. He's really young, in other words. And I don't know that we can just sort of in Sharpie say, when Jalen Williams is healthy, this is a perennial all-NBA guy, you know? I think he's really good. I'm not sure I'm quite there yet.
I'm more on he just hasn't been healthy all year, and if he was healthy, he would be that guy. So I think I'm more on their side. He was like my second or third favorite player in that draft coming into the draft. And I've been incredibly high on him the whole time. And last year was like a confirmation for me of everything that I thought I was going to see. But you saw it when he came back this year with the wrist. He just didn't look like the same guy. Then all of a sudden he gets a hamstring injury, comes back, still doesn't look like the same guy. And now he has another hamstring injury. Like, it's just been one thing after another for him this year. And we haven't seen him playing like himself. Granted, that doesn't mean when he comes back from this latest hamstring injury that he's going to be the guy he was last year either. Like, the wrist was clearly still bothering him when he came back this year. We don't know if or when that's going to be healthy either.
Mm-hmm. He's only got one season in his career where he shot over 37% from three. So this guy doesn't have a track record of being like a lights out shooter. He was very good, at times, but even in the playoffs last year, 30% from three. The thing I do like about Jalen Williams is that despite all the injuries, when he's out there, he's still doing the other things. Like, he's still playmaking, he's still rebounding a bunch. Like, he's doing things to make his presence felt. He's getting to the free throw line. Like, he's doing all the other things that we like Jalen Williams to do. I just don't love this idea that it comes down to the three-point shooting with him. And I'm not saying necessarily that you're saying that or anybody's saying that, but if it's there right now, it's a big problem, because OKC looks a little vulnerable, right? Because their three-point shooting is kind of a problem. They're middle of the pack right now after being top 6 in the league last season. Really, in particular, struggling from the corners. And I do think that might be a Jalen Williams thing, because he's gone from shooting 40% in the corners to 30% on the corners this season, and he's one of their high-volume corner three-point shooters, or higher-volume three-point shooters from the corner. So I don't know. I've got my eye on the Thunder. They weren't one of my deep dive teams, but I do have my eye on them, and I do think the Jalen Williams health thing here is probably the biggest thing for them. So I do agree with you there, but I am interested to see how that plays out. My last deep dive, that was your last deep dive team, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so my last one is, and we'll stick at the top of the West, I've got the San Antonio Spurs. And I'm specifically watching, can they catch the Thunder for the number 1 seed? They're only 3 games back, and they're playing really well. They're healthy. The Thunder are not, right? Shea is supposed to get reevaluated here with the ab thing at the end of the week, so we'll see. It sounds like maybe he'll be back sooner rather than later, but still, that Spurs team, man, they're so good. And it's not just a Wemby being a monster thing, although certainly that's a big part of this. They play really well with each other. They're really versatile. They got a ton of ball handling. They've got enough size where it works. Cornette coming off the bench for them is awesome. Um, I, I'm watching to see if they can catch the Thunder for the number one seed. They're 3 games back, and I think that there's a lot of value in getting the number one seed in the Western Conference right now.
3 games is just a lot to make up even in like 20, 25 games down the stretch. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be hard for them to catch the Thunder, especially if Shea comes back in the next week or so, which it seems like it's pretty likely that he's going to be back the next week, 2 weeks, something along those lines. So whether they can catch the Thunder, I don't know. I'm almost more interested in what it looks like in the playoffs for them rather than the regular season, just because we've seen already the ceiling of what this team can be, and it's as good as almost any team in the league, and they've already obviously beaten the Thunder 3 times. I think similar to the Pistons, we're going to have to see what the offense looks like in the playoffs, because they're another team that can't shoot, and just the way they deal with that, and whether they have, like I said, with the Pistons, like, do they have enough juice, enough verve in their offense to overcome the fact that they're not shooters? Like, they're in the top 10 in offense, I think, and the Pistons are not right now. But I think the same sort of question about whether they'll be able to maintain that scoring level in the playoffs exists, because nobody's going to guard Castle. Nobody's going to guard Harper. Nobody's going to guard Harrison Barnes or Keldon Johnson. I'm talking about from the perimeter. And Castle, right, I think, is better than a lot of the guys on the Pistons at sort of eating up the space that defenses give him and being able to get into the lane anyway. Like, he's just a ridiculous athlete, and he's so fast, and he's so good with the ball in his hands that he's going to be able to do that even if the teams lay off of him, I think, in a different way than some of the guys in the Pistons would be able to. But they're just not going to guard all these guys, and it's going to be very much up to De'Aaron Fox and Wemby to be able to overcome that offensively. And that's what I'm interested in seeing with them through the rest of the year. Like, I have so much confidence that they're going to be really good down the stretch of the season. Whether they can catch the Thunder, I don't know. I think that they can maintain that 2 seed. They are 3.5 games up on the Nuggets. Like, that's another gap that's pretty big to make up, especially with how well the Spurs are playing. But once they get into the playoffs, specifically into the second round of the playoffs, when they're probably going to have to play Denver, like, that becomes an entirely different animal.
Yeah. That's sort of my next, like, 1B thing is, are they ready for the grind of the postseason? Not just, the physicality and the minutes and all that stuff, because also Wembanyama averaging 29 minutes per game right now. Are they going to ramp his minutes up in the playoffs? Like, I don't know that they're definitely going to. And if they do, is it going to get to the levels of 34, 35, 36 minutes, the way we see some of these star players play? I don't know how they feel about that, right? I don't know what the team doctors are telling them about all of that stuff. And I think that's a big thing. And then obviously the scouting report you mentioned with the guards, but also teams, starting to throw the kitchen sink at Victor Wembanyama. What does that look like when teams start scouting against him more specifically in a playoff series? Because we haven't seen it yet. Wemby hasn't seen it yet. He's going to be awesome. I'm just interested to see how that looks.
Yeah, I wonder with the minutes if it's kind of like Giannis, where the Bucks would never really ramp him up into the high 30s of minutes. It's just not something that they would do, especially under Mike Budenholzer. I wonder if it's just not physically feasible for him to be playing like 38, 40 minutes a night. So that's something that'll be interesting to watch. And then, like you said, teams more directly scheming against him, like, how physical are they going to get? Are they going to guard him with smaller guys? Are they going to guard him with bigger guys? How are they going to mix between those two? How many bodies are they going to show him between him and the basket when he gets those mid-post touches? Yeah, there's a lot to consider there.
Well, that's the end of our deep dive. We don't have a ton of time left, so this is going to be the speediest of speed rounds. So we're going to hit every other team that we haven't hit so far, Jared. Just tell me what you're watching. You could just tell me in a sentence, in a name, in a word. If you want to include an elevator pitch, that's completely up to you. You go ahead and do that, but we're going to speed through the speed round. We'll go alphabetical order because that's how you wrote your column. And like I said, I stole your entire thing here, so that's what we're going to do. Atlanta Hawks. We haven't talked about them yet. Go ahead.
Unfortunately, I guess I'm watching Jonathan Kuminga whenever he makes his debut. He'll have more runway to do what he wants offensively there, and it'll be interesting, at least on some level, to see how that goes. Somewhat skeptical that it'll be successful, but crazier things have happened before.
If I never have to watch or talk about Jonathan Kuminga ever again as a basketball analyst, I would be very happy. I'm sick of him as a storyline in general, but
Yeah.
I also had Kuminga versus Risache in particular. This is more of a long-term outlook thing, but would it be crazy if Kuminga ended up being better than Risache? I don't know. And I think that's maybe something that is worth watching down the final stretch. All right, Brooklyn.
Just the rookies. Like, can Yegor Droman make a shot inside the arc? Can Drake Powell make one outside of it? Will Danny Wolf and Nolan Traore keep up the little runs they went on before the start of before the All-Star break? And can Ben Surov stay on the court if he doesn't do anything other than make an interesting pass every once in a while?
Nolan Traore, to me, 17-8 over the last 4 games, starting to trend in the right direction after not playing for most of the start of the year. Would it be crazy if he ended up being the best rookie of this crazy class that they have together? I don't think so. I'd still probably go Yegor, but I don't think it'd be crazy if Nolan ended up being the best guy. Charlotte's next.
Are they going to keep up this run? They've won 11 of their last 13 games. The only losses were to the Cavs and the Pistons by a combined 13 points. And, they kicked a whole lot of ass in the interim there. So they're not going to win that consistently the rest of the way. But, how much are they going to keep up and through the rest of the season? Can they make it out of the play-in? I don't think so.
No, it's a big hill to climb there. This was almost one of my deep dive teams, but my simple answer is, what am I watching with the Charlotte Hornets the rest of the way? Every freaking game, dude. I love watching this team play basketball. The LaMelo roller coaster is fun as an impartial observer. It's an interesting thing. Really quick, like, this isn't just a team that is shooting really well and they've got a couple players that got hot and it's just play. There are real basketball things happening here. They rebound the snot out of the ball. They're the number one, I think, in the league in defensive rebounding rate. They win the math advantage in terms of that, limiting offensive rebounds, limiting free throw attempts, right? They do all this stuff. They have the best 5-man unit in basketball right now with this starting group. That is not I said that right, and I checked it, and it's absolutely true. There's real basketball stuff that Charles Lee is doing with this group that deserves a lot of praise and deserves our attention. Chicago Bulls are next.
Shout out Moussa Diabate real quick before we go to the Chicago
Moose.
Bulls. For the Bulls, for once, it's not the play-in standings that we're going to watch in the second half of the season. It's the second draft guys. I want to see Rob Dillingham and Jaden Ivey.
Same. We did Dallas already. Denver.
Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson's hamstring injuries.
Yeah, I've got that. Besides health, Jamal Murray. Is he going to parlay his first All-Star appearance into maybe his first All-NBA appearance?
Ooh.
Right now, I would say yes, right? Austin Reeves, I'm not sure that he would have it up, but he's already eliminated. You look at the bubble, Luka, Steph, Booker, these guys are on the availability bubble right now. I think if you had to put your All-NBA teams together, Jamal Murray would have a really strong case to make it, and deservingly so. He's been awesome this season. He's been great.
I haven't thought specifically about the All NBA yet. I can't believe how soon that's probably going to come up.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, he's certainly got a chance given how well he's playing.
Golden State.
I feel like the only thing to watch there is Steph.
Yep. I literally have Steph. Nothing else is interesting. We talked about Houston, Indiana.
What does it look like if and when Zubac gets back on the court? Like, obviously, it won't look anything like it's going to next year when Tyrese Halliburton is back, but how he plays with, Pascal Siakam and Aaron Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard and how all those guys fit together could be meaningful in the long run.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like he's close to coming back. Rick Carlisle was talking about this recently. They're not going to rush him back, obviously, because the Pacers have other plans for the rest of this season. But I would love to see him on the court, specifically how Carlisle uses him defensively, and then offensively, how he plays off of Pascal Siakam. Siakam has really developed into a knockdown three-point shooter, so I think this is going to work. I'm positive this is going to work. They're too good. They're both too physical and too talented and too smart for it not to work. But I'd love to just at least see it. Give us a taste, Indiana. You're going to have a good pick. Just give us a little bit of a taste here. The Clippers.
I'm amending this one from what I had in my article that I did earlier this week because Jordan Miller got himself a 2-year contract today. Cocaine's.
Cocaine's. There we go. I'm not watching the Clippers. How far? I'll watch them in the standings. How far can Kawhi drag this team, I guess, is the only thing. But don't make me do it. The Lakers.
Their insane record in clutch games. They have outperformed their point differential by 6 wins so far. That's the most in the league, and it's because they're 15-3 in games that are within 5 points in the last 5 minutes in the league. That's obviously the best in the league also. And their 18 clutch games are the fewest in the league, which is interesting. Like totally unsustainable over the long term to be 15-3 in clutch games. But there is no long term anymore. There's only short term left. So can they keep up anything remotely like that, or are they going to come, sort of crashing back down to earth?
Yes to all those things. This team feels so shaky, and it just feels like it's a matter of when and not if the entire foundation just crumbles underneath. Like their record in the clutch is why their record is what it is, but they have a neutral net rating. They shouldn't be anywhere where they are right now in the standings. Just even when you watch them, it feels shaky. When they win games, they'll be losing for 3.5 quarters, and LeBron and Luka just do crazy stuff for 6 minutes, and then they win some of these games. But LeBron's not playing back-to-backs, it looks like, for the rest of the season. I think that's interesting. The other thing I'm watching with the Lakers is, okay, we got that story during All-Star break about, hey, the Lakers, we want you back, LeBron, don't worry. I'm interested to see if we get any LeBron quotes over these final couple of months of where exactly his head is at in terms of his future. I am watching every LeBron James press conference right now. Memphis is next.
How high can they climb in the lottery leaderboard? Like they have the 8th worst record right now. They're only a game and a half ahead of the Mavericks and 3.5 ahead of the Jazz. I do not think they're closing that gap on the Jazz, but maybe they close it on the Mavericks.
Can John Morant play his way into positive trade value? Because on one hand, Memphis would be suited to just shut him down and keep tanking, right? To your point. But on the other hand, they tried to trade him. They couldn't trade him. Like they might want to put him out there and showcase him a little bit and show, hey, this guy can play games. This guy can play games at a high level. We got to try to trade this guy over the summer. Milwaukee.
Will Cam Thomas challenge the record for shots per minute for as long as Giannis is out? He's taken 38 shots in 58 minutes with the Bucks so far. That's 23.6 per 36 minutes. Jaylen Brown leads the league at 23.7 per 36 minutes. And I think Cam Thomas can take more shots.
Well, we know Cam Thomas can take more shots. The question is, will he be allowed to take more shots with the minutes that he gets? But yeah, Cam Thomas, I guess, is what I had written down here. I'm not interested in watching Milwaukee, but the Cam Thomas show, I guess, is something. I just love that he came out and scored whatever it was, 34 points in his first game, and I'm sure he was just telling people, see, Tobias Harris over me, or whatever his version of that is, I guess, is like a roster spot over me. Yeah, that's what we wanted. Minnesota.
Just the fit with Ayo Dosunmu down the stretch. He seemed like a guy that they really needed, and I just want to see how it works out in the backcourt.
Yeah, between Dosunmu, Mike Conley, Dante DiVincenzo, there's some really interesting lineups that I think Chris Finch can get to, how he uses these guys, rotation patterns, stuff like that. Who Dosunmu gets his minutes next to, I think is really interesting. Like how much do we see him next to Ant? How much do we see him next to some of these other guys? That to me is what I'm watching. New Orleans.
I just really like watching Trey Murphy. That dude is a baller. And that's the Pelicans are so terrible. And it's worth watching to see what, Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears do. But for the most part, I just want to watch Trey Murphy.
I just want to watch Zion Williamson. Has not missed a game since December 11th. He's averaging 21.4 points per game on 60. That's true. It's a true thing. I've checked that so many times because it doesn't feel right. He has not missed a game since the middle of December. He's averaging 21 on 61% shooting. His assists are down. His rebounds are up. A lot of offensive rebounds. He has not taken a single three in that stretch. And I love it. I love this. I love that he's settled into just being a dominant inside scorer, play finisher kind of guy. No more point Zion, none of this stuff. This guy's just a physical freak, and they're leaning into that. He's the hammer that they need. I'm enjoying watching this version of Zion quite a bit lately. We talked about New York. We talked about OKC. Orlando is next.
Is there anything that this team can do in the second half of the season that would save Jamal Mosley's job for next year? It seems like we might be hitting the end of the road here, given the way this season has gone.
That's actually a great call. Franz is out. I'll be watching if Paolo can take the reins. Spoiler alert, no. He's been the same player for 3 years. I was very, very high on Paolo a couple years ago, and I'm starting to sell some of that stock. Philadelphia. Did we talk about them already? No,
we didn't. For the 100th straight year, it's Joel Embiid's health. He's just got while coming back from his knee soreness, he now has a shin injury. So,
yep. They're a standings team. They lost 2 in a row right before the break. Sort of wobbling in between. Are we going to stay the 6th seed? Or are we going to fall back into the play-in? That's what I'm watching with them. Phoenix.
Yeah, for the Suns, it's the play-in stuff for me. Like, can they jump any of the Wolves, Lakers, or Rockets to get out of the play-in? They're 2 games back of Houston, 1 game back of both the Lakers and Minnesota. They have the 9th toughest remaining strength of schedule, but the Lakers have the 8th toughest, and the Wolves have the 3rd toughest. So that could all matter down the stretch.
I had the same thing. Portland.
What are we going to get from Scoot Henderson the rest of the way? He played 4 of the final 5 games before the All-Star break, but those were his first games of the season. Like, we're deep into the 3rd year of Scoot in the NBA, and we don't really know what he is yet. So I'm definitely going to be watching that.
I also had Scoot. Played well over those like 3 or 4 games that he played right before the break, finishing at a high rate. The shooting percentages are good. I like some of the playmaking stuff, although I'm still not buying him as a playmaker all the way. He's sort of a weird, I think, combo guard. Is he a 1? Is he a 2? Obviously a better scorer than he's a playmaker. Is he ever going to get the opportunity or just stay healthy enough to develop as a playmaker? That's my big question with Portland. Hopefully we get more data points along the way here. Sacramento.
I'm not watching Sacramento.
I have nothing. I literally wrote nothing. I'm not watching you. Toronto.
Well, I guess I could say Maxime Reynaud, because what I had in the post was Maxime Reynaud and Dylan Cardwell, and Cardwell's out, so I guess it's just Reynaud at this point. Toronto, it's whether they can stay out of the play-in and or catch up to the teams ahead of them. They're 3 games up on Orlando and 3.5 up on Miami, and then 2 games back of Cleveland, 3 back of New York, and 3.5 back of Boston. I feel like they're probably just going to stay where they are, given the gap between them and the other teams. But whether that balance tips in one direction or the other is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think they probably end up staying where they are. I'm watching 2 players. I'm watching Jamal Shed because I like watching Jamal Shed. I'm also watching Scotty Barnes because I've really enjoyed this Scotty Barnes season. He's playing with chutzpah. He's quietly, if you listen to like Toronto people, they're kind of pushing him for DPOY here, which I think is he's got a really interesting case, and I'm here for it because he's been really good this year.
He doesn't have a case if Wemby makes the games cut off, but Correct. He's got an interesting case to be on the ballot.
He's got a case to be in the conversation, right? Which is what I'm more interested in, like right now and for the next 10 years, while Wemby is just collecting some of these trophies here. 2 minutes over our 1 hour. I think we did it. I think that counts, Jared. We hit all 30 teams in a little bit over 60 minutes. Hooray for us. We've got
2 teams left.
We do.
We got the Jazz and the Wizards.
Oh my gosh, I just have to scroll down. Obviously. Never mind. So sorry, Utah and Washington. Even though you guys have given up on your season, we have not given up on you. Utah, go ahead.
Whether the $500,000 fine and the shaming deters them like at all.
I think we know what Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., Keontae George are. I'm interested, like Cody Williams, Isaiah Collier. Like, are these guys something? They're obviously going to start trying to compete and win games and actually try next year. Are these guys going to be a part of that or not? Kyle Filipowski, you could throw him in that mix too. Washington.
Alex Sarr and Keyshawn George, who are just like legitimately good players, I think. They're going to help the Wizards whenever they start trying to be good, which I would assume like the Jazz is next year.
Yeah, I'm going to continue watching Sarr because he just continues to develop in the right way as the season goes on. Trey Johnson, I'll throw him in the mix there. Really good rookie.
I love Trey Johnson, yeah.
He's cooled off from 3 over the last few weeks. Can he kind of get it back? I'm not really doubting his 3-point shot. He's a knockdown 3-point shooter. But can he end the year strong, I suppose? That would be a nice little feel-good for the Wizards, in addition to getting Anthony Davis and Trae Young. Now we did it, Jared Dubin. 30 teams in just over 60 minutes. Nobody else could do it better. Thank you for allowing me to steal your whole format for a podcast. I appreciate you jumping on. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.